You don't need to excavate pyramids to discover Egypt's spiritual secrets. They're hidden in plain sight, embedded in the gestures, names, and symbols still carved into stone temples and subtly echoed within ourselves. Egyptian spirituality wasn't a religion in the modern sense. It was a science of the spirit, a refined mathematics of the soul. Behind the well-known images of mummies, pharaohs, and hieroglyphs lies one of the most advanced symbolic systems expressing humanity's relationship with the cosmos. This journey uncovers forgotten details and deeper meanings, far from what popular documentaries often present. You'll encounter the hidden role of goddesses like Ma'at, the geometry and purpose of sacred architecture, the symbolism behind mummification, and how the human heart played a central role in the soul's judgment after death. At the heart of this spiritual framework was the concept of Ma'at, more than just a goddess. Ma'at was the essence of universal harmony and balance. She represented the invisible order that held together the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. Egyptians believed everything in the universe operated according to this cosmic code, and it was everyone's duty to uphold it. Ma'at was not confined to temples or statues. She was present in all aspects of life: royal decisions, legal matters, business, and even daily conversations. To live in Ma'at meant to live with truth, balance, justice, and harmony. Egyptians feared the return of Isfet, the force of chaos which could unravel the world if Ma'at was violated. This principle reached its most mystical expression after death. According to Egyptian funerary texts, the soul entered the Hall of Judgment, where it underwent a ritual known as the weighing of the heart. The heart, seen as the seat of consciousness and moral memory, was weighed against the feather of Ma'at. If the heart was light, pure, and balanced, the soul ascended to the fields of Aru, the Egyptian paradise. But if it was heavy with lies, guilt, and imbalance, it was devoured by Ammit, a terrifying creature with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. This second death, erasing the soul's existence entirely, was feared more than physical death. Importantly, this was not seen as divine punishment, but as a law of nature. There was no judge handing out verdicts, only the weight of one's heart, shaped by a lifetime of choices. In this way, the Egyptians championed personal responsibility, reminding us that no one escapes the consequences of their actions. In a universe where everything was a balance between order and chaos, only those who lived truthfully could pass through unburdened. This concept still speaks to us today. How many of us carry heavy hearts, filled with regrets, lies, and unhealed wounds? Egyptian spirituality calls us to continuously purify ourselves, to live with such integrity that when the time comes, our hearts will be light enough to float freely into the beyond. When we look at mummies in museums today, we often assume they are mere relics of a death-obsessed civilization. But that perception is shallow. To the Egyptians, the body was sacred, a microcosm of the universe. Mummification was not about preserving flesh, but about preparing the body as a spiritual machine for the soul's ascension. Each organ and limb had a metaphysical purpose. During the embalming, organs were placed in canopic jars, each protected by specific deities, not for preservation but as part of a sacred alchemical ritual. The skin was treated with oils, and layers of linen were wrapped with purpose, sealing spiritual energies. Every amulet and symbol within the wrapping served magical functions, guiding, protecting, and energizing the soul on its journey through the Duat, the underworld. In fact, the design of Egyptian temples mirrored the human body. Scholars like Schwaller de Lubitsch observed how temples like Luxor were structured anatomically, from feet to brain, symbolizing the initiate's journey from physical darkness to inner spiritual light. Just as the soul journeyed, the physical walked through, a temple was a pilgrimage of purification and rebirth. The mummy wasn't a corpse, but a kind of spiritual capsule or hardware, carefully programmed to allow the vital energies, K, life force, Ba, personality, and Ak, spiritual light, to maintain their link between worlds. The Egyptians saw the body not as disposable after death, but as an essential part of the soul's full transformation. Among the most powerful Egyptian myths is that of Isis and Osiris. At first, it seems like a myth of tragedy, a king killed by his jealous brother and reassembled by his devoted wife. But behind it lies a deeply symbolic spiritual blueprint. Osiris, a just and enlightened king, was murdered by his brother, Set, who dismembered and scattered his body. Isis, Osiris's wife and sister, gathered the pieces in a sacred quest and used her magical power to resurrect him, not to the physical realm, but as ruler of the underworld. Their son Horus later avenged his father and restored cosmic order. This myth was more than a story. It was a spiritual initiation path. To the Egyptians, we each carry an Osiris within us. Our divine potential must be broken apart by ego and life's challenges, only to be reassembled by Isis, our intuitive soul. Initiation in Egypt involved symbolic deaths, dark nights of the soul, and trials that mirrored this mythic journey. Only by dying to the ego could one be reborn with true consciousness. Isis represented the healing inner force that lovingly puts the broken pieces of the soul back together, and Osiris the awakened state of spiritual sovereignty. These themes echo in many global traditions, from Dionysus and Orpheus to Jesus and Carl Jung's archetypes. Yet in Egypt, they were lived in ritual, symbol, and daily practice. Finally, temples in ancient Egypt weren't just grand buildings. They were considered living beings, structures that breathed and pulsed with cosmic energy. Each temple was designed to reflect both the universe and the human body, with sacred geometry, vibrational symbols, and alignments to stars and celestial cycles. Walking through a temple wasn't a tourist activity. It was a spiritual initiation. Each room activated different layers of consciousness, and every stone bore inscriptions intended to awaken the soul. The priests, called servants of the temple, were not mere caretakers, but energetic stewards who performed rituals and chants to keep the temple's life force in balance. They were the cells of a great sacred organism. The ancient Egyptians didn't merely build temples to honor gods in a literal sense. They built them as living structures, resonant with spiritual vitality. These temples were more than stone and design. They were sacred engines pulsing with energy, aligned with divine purpose. When left abandoned, a temple didn't just decay. It became a lifeless husk, a body without a soul, severed from its sacred mission. To the Egyptian mind, a deserted temple was a broken bridge between the visible and invisible realms. Yet many of these temples still stand today, silent, majestic, powerful. But one must ask, do they still breathe? The Egyptians believed that as long as someone entered these spaces with reverence, someone who could read and feel the ancient symbols with an open heart, the temple could remain alive. Each footstep echoing between the great stone columns, each glance cast upon the intricate hieroglyphs, was a subtle act of spiritual resurrection, bringing the temple and what it represents back to life. We often view ancient Egyptian spirituality through the lens of modern religion, imagining pantheons and rituals in the way we understand churches, gods, and dogma. But this comparison fails to capture the essence of their worldview. Egypt didn't possess a religion in the modern, institutional sense. It had an initiatory spiritual system, an encoded inner science intended to awaken and elevate the soul. The gods they spoke of weren't simply figures to be worshipped, but archetypal forces, cosmic principles, and psychological mirrors. Isis, Osiris, Horus, Anubis. These weren't just deities. They were living metaphors representing higher truths, doorways to self-realization. Worship in Egypt wasn't about petitioning a god for favor. It was about activating the divine qualities within. The temples were not merely houses of prayer, but mystery schools with public outer courts and secret inner chambers, accessible only to initiates. These inner sanctums were arenas for spiritual transformation. Every corridor, every symbol etched into stone, every ritualized movement was a step in an inner journey of the soul. As initiates moved physically through these temples, they were symbolically moving through the chambers of their own psyche, descending, dying, and being reborn, until finally reaching the sacred sanctuary, the union with the divine. The priests who guided these rites weren't merely ceremonial leaders, they were profound scientists of the spirit. Their expertise extended into astronomy, alchemy, medicine, and metaphysics. They used fasting, meditation, chants in specific vibrational tones, sacred geometry, aromas, and complex symbology, all of it meticulously crafted to shift consciousness. The true objective was not to please gods or avoid divine wrath, but to become an Osiris, one who has died to the ego and awakened to eternal consciousness. This spiritual path was veiled in layers. To the common person, myths like that of Isis and Osiris were moral stories filled with emotional drama. But to the initiates, these myths were encrypted blueprints of inner alchemical transformation. The tale of Osiris's death and rebirth wasn't just a story. It was a sacred metaphor for ego death, soul fragmentation, and eventual spiritual reintegration and ascension. The same myth could yield different meanings depending on the listener's level of understanding, a multi-layered structure of spiritual transmission woven into culture itself. Even Egypt's governance mirrored this esoteric framework. The pharaoh wasn't just a political leader, but the supreme initiate, the living embodiment of Ma'at, the cosmic order. His duty wasn't only to rule a land, but to maintain spiritual balance, acting as a sacred bridge between heaven and earth. His authority stemmed from inner realization, not merely bloodline. Sound, too, played a profound role in this system. Sacred texts were not written to be silently read, but chanted aloud. Sound to the Egyptians was not merely a means of communication, but a force of creation. The world itself, according to their mythos, was spoken into existence by the god Ptah. Words properly intoned had the power to shape reality and open portals between worlds. Hieroglyphs were more than symbols. They were containers of sacred sound, with each sign holding a vibrational signature. A priest, trained in pronunciation and pitch, could activate these forces during rituals. The Book of the Dead, for example, wasn't just read, it was intoned with precise intonation during funeral rites to guide the soul through the afterlife. Temples were even designed with acoustics in mind. Certain chambers, such as those in the Temple of Dendera or inside the Great Pyramid, were acoustically engineered to amplify specific frequencies. Sounds chanted in these rooms echoed with power, vibrating through the body and soul. This wasn't coincidental, it was intentional. Sound was used as a spiritual technology, crossing the boundaries between matter and spirit. The Egyptian priest was not only a sage but a musician, a keeper of vibrational codes passed down orally. He understood that a chant sung out of tune could lose its effect, or worse, open undesirable energies. This deep knowledge of sound later echoed in many traditions: Gregorian chants, Eastern mantras, shamanic singing. But in Egypt, sound was central to magic, to healing, to divine communion.